You know, they're selling you all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You do nothing. You do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you do nothing. You do fucking nothing. Not one of you will do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there, I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. That's what the fuck he wants.
I'm gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Nick Diaz, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? Call me Mr. Chimney. I want smoke.
Yes. What is up? MCR family, another daily edition of the show. Live on YouTube, obviously 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Podcast forum, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc. It's one of those shows where we're going to talk about things that we don't really want to talk about or like to talk about, or that we just doubt. You know, this whole Mayweather, Tenshin Nasukawa, revitalized news story. It's something I really don't want to address, but I feel like I have to. It's a topic that I talked about a lot last week, and it's one that is popping up again, obviously, now with Floyd Mayweather going to TMZ and saying the fight is on for an exhibition. Obviously, going to get to those details in a minute. On top of that, weight cutting issues spring up again in combat sports. Cynthia Cavallo almost basically fainting at her weigh-in for UFC Fight Night tomorrow. Major concern there. Diego De La Hoya fainted during his workouts to cut weight for his fight coming up. I believe it was tomorrow. That fight has been canceled. So not only do we see this in one combat sport or in one division or whatever, we see it across the board. Extreme weight cutting have a drastic effect this weekend, health-wise, for the athletes we talk about, we watch, and that's something that we're going to have to delve into again and talk about. Nick Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal. Obviously, look, I mean, you see the emoji on the title. Like, I want this. You listen to the intro, half of it's the Diaz brothers. I am totally unashamed about that. I'm a huge Diaz brother fan. So, obviously, I want to talk about Nick Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal. Is it likely? Are we going to see it? Is another Dana White tactic? Obviously, topics that we, again, might be a little bit on the negative side today. I hope you guys still enjoy it. Smash the like button, share the show, subscribe if you're listening on podcast form. Drop that iTunes review since 99% of you listen on iTunes. Drop that review. Not only do you just drop the 5-star or the 4-star, 3-star, whatever, write a review, because that's what I'm actually going to read on the show. So when you write the review, I read on the show. It can be 1-star to 5-star. Does not matter. I read them all. Shout out to Main Event Mark, Jonathan, I Am Kid, and Oscar Martinez in the chat early. I hope everyone's having a fantastic Friday. Obviously, we have the Maurice Hooker, Alex Acedo fight for ESPN tonight, late. The main event starts at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific, after the basketball games. I know it's not the Raptors-Celtics game. It's the game after that. I forget which one it is. It's going to be interesting to see sort of how that plays into it. You know, obviously, when we talk about, let's say, on the other side of the street, other side of the block for PBC, Earl Spence and his huge 6.5 million viewers on NBC was directly after the Olympic basketball game that featured obviously the U.S. men's team with LeBron, Kobe, etc. Obviously had a direct beneficial amount towards ratings and viewership for that event. Let's see if it happens tonight as well. Gary in the chat saying, no more work. I am done. Let the weekend begin. That's what's up, Gary. Salute to you. End of the weekend, or end of the week for you. My work week is really just beginning. Shout out to Combat Sports Journalism, always being a Thursday to Sunday, I feel like, work week. But anyways, digressing, let's get to these topics, because, again, some of them I'm just really not too pleased to talk about, but we have to. But if you want to talk about it, or if you want to shit on it like me, because I'm going to end up shitting on a lot of these, call in 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. I'll repeat that again, 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. All that information is below on the screen or in the podcast or show description /info below. Also, email me if you're international, mixedcombatradio@gmail.com. Get a free international permanent calling link. All that stuff aside, Floyd Mayweather. Let's get out some sad music, because this guy just doesn't know when to leave, in a way. Per TMZ, Floyd Mayweather, the Tokyo fight is back on. Gonna make it happen. And look, man, if you are a Mayweather Promotions fighter right now, you gotta be a little bit upset, right? Like, you must be looking at this like, how is this even possible? You know, that you're still out here getting an alleged $88 million for a 9-minute exhibition boxing match, air quotes, with a 20-year-old, 121-pound kickboxer. Obviously it was shit to begin with, but in the beginning, when it was new, it was weird, and the weirdness of it's fun in a way. Like, there's a part of that in combat sports, you know, like the WWE pro wrestling side of combat sports entertainment always bleeds over sometimes, and this was one of those in a way. And when, you know, Mayweather went out with the Instagram post, said, you know, it's not going to happen, whatever, I think we all sort of breathe a collective sigh of relief, like, okay, we don't have to really deal with the circus of that. We can just sort of move on, and then hopefully, you know, guys like Gervonta Davis and others get their shine, get, you know, Mayweather to actually promote them. But no, we see Mayweather randomly with TMZ telling them that, hey, it's back on. Saki Gabara, obviously the president and CEO of Ryzen, he came out and said, yep, it's back on. We figured out all the issues with Mayweather. Yeah. I think we can, again, my issue really isn't with Mayweather doing these exhibition matches. It's not with Mayweather fighting people that aren't relevant in boxing. That really fundamentally has no problem in my mind. I mean, if you want to make a big, grandstanding statement about how that dilutes the nature of the sport and that sort of opens the floodgates to other weird fights happening, I understand that. I get it. But to me, it's always about Mayweather has such a drastic, not control, but he has such a drastic presence in the sport as a promoter, as just a personality, as a figure. And I feel like he ruined that more than anything with stuff like this, with the McGregor fight, for example. It takes away from guys that should be getting the shine. You know, if Mayweather decided, hey, you know what, instead of me actually trying to, you know, make my millions off of myself, let me build up these other young guys in the sport. Let me build them up. And you know what, I'm going to make money off of them, because that's how it always happens, right? And that's the business. It's no problem with that. Bob Arum makes money off his fighters, you know, Al Heyman does, Eddie Hearn. They all make money off their fighters. Why doesn't Mayweather just stick to that? You think if Mayweather did, you know, media tours and circuits for guys like Gervonta Davis and others, he would not have, still made money, not worry about, you know, being bankrupt or anything like that. And I don't know, that's speculation in a way. But on top of that, you build the next generation. And I feel like he's never done that. And on a whole, there's only probably a few stars we can look at in the sport and say, yeah, they really built up the next generation. Mike Tyson tried and failed. From my knowledge, and I could be wrong, Sugar Ray Leonard never really did that post his career from what I've seen. Evander's, I think done a pretty decent job, as a regional promoter in his area. But Floyd Mayweather, Oscar De La Hoya is another one, of course. At least he doesn't go out and try to fight, Khabib and Conor and, Japanese kickboxers. At least he just tries to be a promoter. He may not be the greatest at it. He may have his own personal issues and demons, but at least we don't see, him sort of not really try to be a promoter. When's the last time we've seen Mayweather at a Mayweather Promotions press conference? When's the last time we've seen him do any media tour for one of his fighters? To me, that is the big point of this story, or at least what we should really be talking about, how it should be phrased, or I should say framed, as a topic, is why is Mayweather continuing to do this shenanigans, this bullshit, instead of promoting the next generation, which he's technically should be doing. It is what it is. However, again, if you want to call in, talk about this, 323-870-4051, press 1 to get in the queue. But I'm going to move on from this topic and talk about some more, some hardcore boxing topics to sort of get this stain out of the way, because, God, I just don't care anymore. And to be honest, I feel bad. I feel bad for Mayweather Promotions and its stable. Let's be honest. Speaking of feeling bad, poor Charlie Edwards here. Fight versus Cristofer Rosales on the white Chisora card for the WBC World Flyweight Championship. Rosales is perhaps one of the most devastating punchers in the low weight classes. On top of that, Charlie Edwards is really a untested. He's 14-1. His lone step up again, John Casamora, he lost via TKO. This seems relatively short notice in a way. Obviously, it's more about, 6 weeks out, maybe 7 weeks out. It still seems a little bit short notice to confirm this. Ooh, this looks bad for Charlie Edwards here, who, to his credit, isn't really a bad fighter, but I don't think he's at even close to the level of Cristofer Rosales in terms of skill, power, IQ, game plan. Like, Rosales is one of those guys that he's on such a run right now, and he looks so just flawless in a way. He might run this division for a while. And Edwards seems like a sort of stay busy fight for him on a big card in the UK. And plus, Rosales has been fighting in the UK for a while. He fought Paddy Barnes. I forget where that was exactly, but I know he fought Paddy Barnes and just devastated him early. I think it was with the body shot. I expect this fight to be relatively early as well. If this goes past 6 rounds, I'll be kind of shocked, and I'll be a credit to Charlie Edwards. Moving on to some more hardcore news. Chocolatito Roman Gonzalez reveals that there is an offer from Khalid Yaffe or Cal Yaffe after the Pedro Guevara fight next month, December 8th in California. Look, I think I'm in agreement with everyone here. We've been waiting for this fight for a bit. And obviously we knew Chocolatito wanted sort of the long comeback trail after the 2 losses to Rungsvi. I completely understand that. And I feel like a Yaffe fight is the perfect sort of step up after a Guevara fight towards a Rungsvi trilogy, which is what probably Chocolatito wants to sort of finish out his career. Though I don't think that would be a win for him. Yaffe, though, is a winnable fight for Chocolatito at this point still. And a fight that I think we can all be in agreement in. It should be entertaining. It's a relative high-level fight. And it's also a bigger name than what we've seen from Chocolatito in a couple years now. And that would be nice to see. Plus, you probably get a good bit of money over there in the UK, being on the undercard of Joshua pay-per-view, something along those lines. And that would be good for Chocolatito as well. Moving on to some more hardcore news as well. The BBBofC, British Board Boxing of Control, announced a litany of matchups, a la like the WBC and WBA conventions. One of them being Dubois versus Nathan Gorman. I cannot wait for that potential heavyweight fight. Now, do these happen? I don't know, but let me just ring off all of them. Hughie Fury versus Joe Joyce. Daniel Dubois versus Nathan Gorman, like I said. Callum Johnson, who just lost to Artur Beterbiev versus Joshua Buatsi. Love that one. Mark Heffron versus Liam Williams. That fight is close to happening. Ryan Walsh versus Reese Belotti. And Andrew Selby versus Patty Barnes. Also like that fight as well. The likelihood of these fights happening, I think it's probably determined on each matchup individually. But those top three, specifically the Fury, Joyce, Dubois, Gorman, and Johnson Buatsi fight, those three fights, to me, if they happen, would be pretty significant fights over there in the UK in that market, and ones that I want to see as a hardcore fan, to be honest. Especially that Buatsi fight. Even though Callum Johnson should get a tune-up fight beforehand, in theory, Johnson looked pretty competitive against Beterbiev, even a TKO loss. And Buatsi sort of needs a step up, in my opinion. All those matchups, to me, I would sort of, support. Moving on, and this would sort of be our sort of transitional topic. Diego De La Hoya fainting while training to make weight. And on top of that, just to add to it, Cynthia Cavillo missing weight at the UFC Argentina weigh-ins. I'll let the weigh-ins sort of roll behind as I talk. This is a serious issue that I know like massive reform sort of needs, but there's obvious legislative, regulatory statutes, so to speak, that these fighters could just be pulled off the card via the commission. And especially when the Brazilian Athletic Commission is technically the one that has jurisdiction over this event in Argentina, which really means the UFC is the one who has jurisdiction in this event. They could just pull this fight. They could. And they should. God knows if Diego De La Hoya could have got to the scale. But let's say he does go to the scale and he looks like this. There's a strong likelihood that he continues to fight. And in boxing or any sort of combat sport, when you dehydrate yourself to that point where you're fainting, passing out, etc., and you are depriving your brain of that much water, the likelihood of severe brain damage increases exponentially. And the fact that commissions, promoters even, aren't a little more willing to protect their fighters, I mean, it's a sign of just a pure capitalist system, let's be honest. But also, it's just sad. Like, it's just depressing in a way, because these promoters should think of fighters first. Especially these commissions. They should always think of fighters first. And they often don't. And it might come to a time where we as a culture within combat sports needs to implement more within the gym, more within the trainer and the coach, the mentality of, hey, let's not send a fighter out there to die, basically, or get brain damage due to such severe dehydration, or just lose, look bad, not perform well, let alone all the massive health side effects that you are presenting here. It would just be... where we are coming close to a point where, it's always talked about, especially in the UFC side of it, it's going to take someone really severely, getting hurt or dying, unfortunately, for there to be any significant change. And I really hope it doesn't come to that. I really, really hope. If you're listening out there as a fan and you feel a way about this and you want to sort of try to change it, contact your commission, local commission, your state commission. If you're in the U.S., if you're in the UK, contact the BBBofC, contact your regulatory bodies, email them, mail them, tweet at them, Same with promoters, same with networks, same with everyone. Reach out, communicate, The idea that media, especially media, there's a reason why I cover this in my show, and I hope others do as well, and others make articles about it, because they should. Media and consumer backlash will always be the driving indicator of how corporations act. It will. It will. Because when we get pissed off, when the media and the consumers get pissed off, guess what? The advertisers get scared. The people with money get scared. And especially in boxing, us in MMA, whatever, in combat sports overall, we just don't understand that fundamental ability that we have. And we need to exercise it far more, in my opinion. We need to have a much more activist approach with this sport. Even as you listening as a fan, I know a lot of people listening. They have a job or 3 jobs or 2 jobs, whatever. They have kids. I get it. Trust me. I understand it. But send out an email. Google Nevada State Athletic Commission. Google whoever, and find some contact info and send them your opinion. Let them know that be heard out there, actually participate in the community and try to drive it towards a better place. Because otherwise, we're going to sit here and just say, oh, it is what it is. And nothing ever gets done. But anyways, hope that little rant helped. Jay saying, facts, my G, Matt talking straight facts. I appreciate it, Jay, really do. I hope, everyone takes this a certain way. If you don't, if you get upset, if you're out there thinking you're the one with the microphone, you should be talking about more, not me, I'm the one listening, I get it. And I definitely wish more media talked about this more. I definitely wish more media took an activist route towards reform in the sport. But they don't right now. Why? Because I am one of very few that talks about it. Is what it is. Fat Apple saying need the FBI, CIA, and MI6 in the sport to override Nevada Commission. Bribes is power. That's funny. We do. I've always talked about this in terms of unionization and PD regulatory reform. And again, I'm really trying to get Paul Demio from the University of Sterling on about this. He has a PhD on I forget what exactly. I think it's like microbiology. But anyways, it's about basically his entire course and study and presence is on PD regulation across all sports. And right now, I know it's such a unheard topic, a news topic, but start Googling out there. I'll start posting links more and show descriptions and stuff so you guys have a little more easier access to this information and content. But the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, the gold standard, right? The one that I always say, hey, if WADA says this, we have to abide by it, is currently falling apart. Facing massive corruption charges, massive infighting within the entity and corporation itself. So WADA is about on the brink of complete collapse. With that, USADA might be close behind it. With that, might be VADA. Overall, PD regulatory reform is in a very tumultuous state. And again, go and contact people. Go and contact your local congressman. I don't know what the equal is in the UK. I don't know specifically what people in the House of Commons or the House of, the House of Lords are called, but go contact your local representative. Ask them about what the government can do and step in terms of regulation to sort of fix the sport. Because look at the Muhammad Ali Act. The one piece of real legislative, of rights, so to speak, for fighters that we can look to was through the government, was through Congress passing the Muhammad Ali Act and the president ratifying it, So we need something like that. I know the MMA Muhammad Ali Act has been out there for a while. I don't know if that's it, so to speak, but again, try. Any sort of progress is progress, right? If it's a half a step forward, a step forward, 5 steps forward, 10 steps forward, no matter what, that's progress. And with each step, it gets us closer to the next step. So again, contact people. Be outraged. You should be. The sport that you love is in a very odd state right now. And fans need to start speaking out more. Media needs to start speaking out more. Let alone fighters. Let alone people that really should be the voice of the sport. The people involved in it. They're not going to do it. We've seen that time and time again that fighters, for whatever reason, will shoot themselves in the foot instead of actually get progressive reform for their sport. Jay saying, you see Mikey and Spence not doing any VADA testing for the fight. Yes, I did see that. I need to look this up again, but I believe the IBF does use USADA in some form or fashion. It is what it is. And again, I think PD regulation will never be about eliminating all performance-enhancing drugs. It will never be about that. But it needs to be about fixing the system. For example, I forget the exact number, but there's around 20 plus, 22, 24 categories of performance-enhancing drugs. Categories. So, for example, one of them could be diuretics. One of them could be anabolic agents, just to use an example. And there's a ton of drugs listed in those categories, right? About 22, 24 categories from WADA that is banned substance performance-enhancing drugs. A recent Netherlands research study, I forget from what university, but it was in the Netherlands. They looked at what strong evidence do we have from medical studies, peer-reviewed studies, etc., that can point to all these classifications actually being true. Like, these are actually performance-enhancing classifications. Out of the 20 plus, only 5 actually had strong evidence to support it. I forget the exact breakdown after that, but it's about 10 or so that there was just nothing. There was no evidence whatsoever that these classifications of substances are performance enhancement in any way. And I think about 5 of them on the other side actually showed that there's strong evidence that showed they worsen your performance, not enhance it. So PD regulation as a whole is just in a really bad state. So to rubber stamp, to sort of stitch it back to what Jay was asking about, Spence and Garcia, to rubber stamp a faulty, failed, and unproven system on these guys, I think is a little bit unfair, to be quite honest. I know that might be, a hot take there, but it would be, what's sort of the equivalent? Maybe the closest thing, and though it's a little bit extreme, is like prison reform. That obviously there some people need to go to prison, but to rubber stamp the U.S. penal system on a country probably isn't the smartest idea. Where you lock up a lot of nonviolent offenders, etc. Like, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. Similar, this PD regulatory system will convict people that really shouldn't be convicted. That there really isn't evidence on this side, and yet we're just going to rubber stamp the system for fights and for fighters and organizations. I'm hesitant about that. I really am. I rather, at this point, to be honest, we already have a little bit of a Wild West when it comes to PD use in combat sports. I'm okay with that at this point. Let's fix the PD regulatory system. Let's have reform in that, and then stamp that back onto the WBC, WBA, whatever, and have a proper PD regulatory system instead of a faulty one. That's why you would never see me really champion VADA or USADA or WADA or any of them, because they're faulty systems. I'm not going to put my faith in a very faulty system. But anyways, we're going to move on. towards our sort of last topic. Actually, last topic, or really only MMA topic. Brett Okamoto on Twitter saying, breaking, the UFC is close to finalizing Nick Diaz return to the octagon per Dana White. The fight is Jorge Masvidal, UFC 235 on March 2nd in Las Vegas. Diaz's first appearance in more than 4 years. Story coming soon to ESPN. It's... Look, I really am hesitant about any sort of Nick Diaz news, to be honest. He's one of those guys who just doesn't seem interested anymore in a lot of ways. It's a great fight on paper. I think if you're putting Nick Diaz back in after 4 years, Jorge Masvidal is probably the best matchup you can get. One that's favorable in a way. But anyways, I'm just hesitant about going all out for this matchup. It just doesn't really make sense to me. At this point, all of a sudden. Plus, whenever I hear per Dana White, like, red flags go up immediately. If Nick Diaz comes out and says, some bullshit on Twitter about fighting Masvidal or vice versa, then my mind is a little bit changed. I can get a little more hyped for it. I can imagine it. But until then, I will be hesitant about this. But yes, stay up to date on this, obviously by following the channel, subscribe via YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Radio, all that stuff, Mixed Combat Radio. But basically, we're going to wrap up right now. Last thing I'm going to say, because I see Fat Apples, and Jonathan, I see what you just said. Please do not post that stuff again, or I will block you. Thank you. Fat Apples saying, or they will make false claims to protect certain fighters. I don't blame the drug agencies. It's the sanctioning bodies giving out the false results. That's not true. That's just not true. There's you can't even point to a single case of that. I feel like that for anyways, like Fat Apples, that's just conspiratory in a way. What's grounded in facts is that, and evidence and peer-reviewed studies is that the drug agencies, it's not the drug agencies, that those are the companies that make drugs, the PED regulatory companies, WADA, VADA, USADA, have been shown to have faulty systems. Whether it be their requirements, their classifications, whatever you have it, 100% the PED regulatory companies have been found and proven to be inept to do this. WADA's own CEO came out, I think it was last year, it might have been this year, in the first quarter or so, and said, we have no idea what we're doing here, basically. Paraphrasing, of course, but to act like it's the sanctioning bodies of the UFC, no, I think, again, we're rubber stamping a very false, very bad system on these organizations that just doesn't work. It just doesn't. Again, we have far more evidence that really PED regulation needs reform more so than these sanctioning bodies are innately corrupt. And in my opinion, the pay-for-play rankings of sanctioning bodies is far worse, far more of an issue than anything about their PED regulatory sort of programs, like the clean boxing program, for example. Clean boxing program is not really the issue. It's VADA's the issue, for that example. If we're going to talk about the WBC's issues, it's their pay-for-play rankings. That's the problem. That is the root of a lot of the so-and-so corruption of sanctioned bodies. And again, to differentiate that, to sort of separate that out, and to tackle it, both issues separately is important. But to confuse them, I think will lead to probably a misguided opinion like yours, Fat Apples. Just being honest. Fat Apples and coaching the sport behind the scenes have told me that's great, man. That's great. Again, you've said a lot of stuff like that, Fat Apples, and you're just a person on the YouTube comment section with the name Fat Apples. I'd rather go and look at the actual evidence out there instead of somebody on YouTube in the comment sections. You know, or somebody that doesn't even post these coaches in the sport, you know, who have told them. You know, if you have interviews, post them. But anyways, just on nobody on Twitter. Anyways, have a great day. Peace. See you later tonight. Media reaction, live fight show. I haven't decided which one, but I will be back later tonight. Have a great day. Peace.